everybody. Welcome to the session From Coordinated to Connected and Sustainable. My name is Jos Voskuill, and I'm more than 20 years active in the domain of PLM. First, I started as an implementer, even time as a developer, and a lot of time I spent as a mediator in PLM implementations, discussing with the PLM vendor, with the implementer and the customer their PLM issues. And what I learned from that is that a lot of PLM, it's about communication, it's about people, and it's about common sense. It's not that difficult, it's not only technical. And I share those experiences since 2008 in my blog, virtualdutchman.com. And the last 5-6 years, I think I have been focusing on how will PLM get involved in digital transformation? How can we connect this, and how can we make sure when we do a digital transformation, PLM is also involved? And more recently, I've also been more and more focusing on sustainability, and I will talk about this later. Because if you look at this conference is also new for me, a virtual conference. Usually we speak in front of people, we see faces, we have interactions. Now there is no interaction, at least from the other side. And I hope my camera is good enough, because it's my laptop camera. 6 weeks ago, I ordered a camera, but they are not available anymore. So it shows that everyone in the world, now people are moving to digital meeting rooms. There is also still good news for those who need toilet paper. It's still available. So let's launch the presentation and let's see what is happening. So first, this is a beautiful slide illustrating our digital transformation dream. We have the caterpillar and we have the butterfly. The caterpillar is somehow the type of company that we implement currently with our current PLM. It's linear and it's slow, and if we automate a little bit more, it can be faster. But it will never be the butterfly that is flexible, agile, can go in any direction. And that's what we started to implement since 2014, and it will take us 10, maybe 20 years to reach this nice situation. And the only way we need to do is what people think is we go from caterpillar to butterfly through a transformation. In nature, it's difficult, because then the cocoon is out of business for 2-3 months. Can your company be out of business? I don't think so. And I think currently we are experiencing also the challenges. What makes this diagram even more beautiful is there is something green and sustainable, and there is the circular economy. So digital transformation all in one picture. But the question, of course, is when are you going to transform your company, and how? And you might have heard about the boiling frog syndrome. A frog thrown into hot water will jump out immediately. But the frog that is in cold water and you'll heat it up, it will stay inside the water. It will go slower and slower till it dies. And this is a kind of analogy with if you work in a big company and business is going well, but every year business is going less and less. When is the moment to jump out? Or if you're too late, you cannot jump out anymore. The same, it's not only for companies, it's also for us as people. Yes, we like change, as long as change doesn't cost us too much, because we love our habits, we love our ways of working. So if it's a change, it must be something that makes our life easy. And I think one of the big challenges we will see is moving from the analog to the digital world is for a lot of people also a behavior change that is very difficult to grasp. But as a company, you need to transform, otherwise you will become insignificant. Then there is this famous called disruptive innovation theory, published in 1997 by Clayton Christensen. And in his book, which became very popular in the beginning of this century, he explained the theory of the disruption. And for those of you who are of my age, they know the company Digital or Tech still. It was a company that produced mini computers, and they were completely outperformed by the PC. Other companies that were disrupted by new technology were, for example, Kodak, never seeing the digital photography coming up, or you could also say Nokia mobile phones that didn't see the smartphone coming up. And on the left, you see the famous diagram from Clayton Christensen. You have, let's look at the blue arrow. You have a product that is growing on a certain technology path, reaching the low-end market, even the high-end market, but the company keeps on investing, probably listening to their biggest customers, and the product becomes overachieving in performance and probably also too expensive. And then some years later, another company might start a product that in the beginning looks like nothing. It has no value, but it grows thanks to the technology choices. For example, and nowadays it could be cloud. It reaches fast the low-end market, and even very fast afterwards also the needs for the high-end market. And at that moment, you have two products in the market, and one product is old and based on old technology, and there's a new one which is more flexible, more promising. Which product would you buy? Of course, this is the moment that companies like Digital, Kodak, and Nokia mobile phones disappeared, because you could buy a cheaper product with a higher performance and more possibilities. And I know that some of the PLM vendors also, especially the startups, dream about the same situation. And yesterday, Peter Bilalo from SimData talked about it also, that the traditional PLM world could be disrupted from outsiders. I'm less optimistic about this, because I think that one big difference between what we see here in PLM is that PLM comes with data. The data that is stored in a PLM environment is not easy to switch from one product to the other, but that will make at least the disruption option in PLM less possible. However, when Clayton Christensen wrote this theory, he was thinking about linear times. When to disrupt and when to change. I think one of the challenges we have now is, I think most of you are in a lockdown and everyone is thinking, okay, what are we going to do afterwards? And here we have a big opportunity, because if we afterwards try to go back immediately to the past, we miss the opportunity to change towards the future. So use this period to think about and invest in the future. And most of you, because of all the virtual meetings, I would say, are already experiencing new ways of working, and the same for me. So, but it will not happen bottom up. And if you want to do a digital transformation, one of the points that is crucial is you have a need for strong leadership. And strong leadership, you've seen it in companies like Apple, but also if your company wants to transform, if there is no strong leadership, it will not happen. You see the same situation in guided economies. 1956, Singapore was a poor country. Now they are one of the examples of a digital city, the smart city. And the same you can say for the Chinese economy. Of course, with this type of guided economies, we might have our different opinions, but for companies, if you don't have strong leadership, forget a digital transformation that is end-to-end working. This diagram is a diagram I like a lot. It was created by Mark Halperin from Gartner and presented in the PDT conference in 2015, when we had the first discussion on product innovation platforms. And what it does, it nicely maps the maturity of companies to the technologies that are applicable for the type of business you are doing. So if we go from the left, we see the reactive company. This is a kind of a startup company. They make their product for the first time, and the only thing that they are focusing on is delivering this product once or twice. When you become successful, you reach the repeatable phase. That's where you can deliver product at least to the outside world with stability, and internally you still have to build your, I would say, robust processes, your elimination of waste. And I would say this is very much the past for most companies that we are working with. Although in my customer area, especially in small and medium enterprises, they are still suffering in this repeatable mode when it comes to new products. But what most companies are doing currently is they are integrating themselves. They are looking internally to connect each other's functions and to work in a coordinated manner. This is the typical PLM implementation you see at the moment happening since, I would say, 2006. around an item-centric approach, and the focus of a company is often on product quality and cost, and still, I would say, optimizing themselves internally. What we are seeing is, as the next step, the collaboration phase. That's where companies are also, when they do a product innovation, are taking into account partnerships, also the whole value chain, supply chain involved to create a connected enterprise. And here, some companies have already achieved big benefits on that. It's already happening for several years. Others are just investigating how to move from this to this environment. And at the end, this is what you see from all the PLM vendors. You see what is possible if you have this connected enterprise. Then you can be adaptive for the future. You can use artificial intelligence, you can use insights, and in that way, your company becomes very, I would say, orchestrated and very flexible for the future. So there is a maturity path, and in the top you see that the current stage, most companies are in PLM, and if you want to go towards the direction of collaboration, then and orchestration, then you see that the product innovation platforms become more and more viable. To explain the difference between what does it mean for you as a company and in the context of PLM, I want to focus on the words coordinated and connected. What does it mean, coordinated, and what does it mean, connected? So first of all, if you look at the coordinated approach, it's very much about the right information at the right time in the right context. And it's an old, I would say, statement that I made already 15 years ago when we talked about what is the aim of PLM. And when we talk about the right information, it's very much delivered in documents, and documents have become now electronic files, PDFs, and it can be an Excel spreadsheet, it can be a 3D model, it can be a drawing, a simulation, a Word document, but the deliverables are documents. And what is the right time? The right time depends on most of the time on the processes that you have in your company. If you have a new product introduction process per stage, per gate, you need to deliver documents. And also the life cycle of a product might require during change and every phase additional documents. Once we have created those documents, we want to store them in context for manufacturing, for traceability. And in the past, we did it in folders on the file server. Now, in modern PLM systems, we use BOM structures. BOM structures like an EBOM, an MBOM, or an SBOM. And this is the way we put the documents in context for usage. The next step on top of that, what you see happening in the coordinated approach is we don't want to manage only product data, but we also want to manage the additional data in context, like software, like ERP data and others. And for that, we create an overlay platform, a database that connects the different artifacts. And often this is also called the digital thread. So looking at what is the result of the coordinated approach, it's really, I would say, suited for a linear process. And if you look at those stage gate processes, the MPI processes, they look linear. And the beautiful part of this is that people can work in their silos. They can choose their own tools that they like the most. And the only thing they have to do at the right time to deliver, to publish information to the organization. And they can do it in PDF, they can do it in the native format, or if it's a data set like a bill of materials, they can send it automated to the ERP system to have it transferred there. And the beauty is you can have your processes measured, you can compare them, and you can optimize them. Where are the bottlenecks? And this is what my colleagues from PLM 1.0 have been doing for 15 years from now. And everyone talks about the fact that PLM is difficult to implement. And for me, the conclusion is what makes PLM difficult, it's because we are organized in silos. Every company is measuring people in their silo, their profit and loss, the time spent, and we don't invest in horizontal coordination. Often the ownership of PLM is only in the part of engineering. So horizontal coordination is one of the most difficult parts of PLM. Now let's look at the connected enterprise. And what you see here is on the right side, a collection of 5 platforms that could work together. If you saw yesterday Peter Bilal's presentation, he also was talking about platforms, and everyone can have somehow a different definition where the platforms are. But what you see is on the left top, you might have the operational platform. This is your IoT platform that connects to devices, that collects information, analyzes and optimizes the performance of assets. You have in the left corner, you have the CRM system, the right top, the ERP system, and you have in the bottom the MES system. And the MES system is mainly there because you want to control in detail what is happening in your manufacturing process. If you want to follow serialized products, if you want to know exactly which customer order has been processed, you need an MES system. But all those platforms, they need something in the middle that makes it tick. And this is, I took the example here of the SimData Product Innovation Platform. This is where products are created, where a portfolio is managed, and this is where the whole content of the product exists. And everything is stored as much as possible in databases, in data elements. And the idea of this platform is that within those different platforms, you have your apps and your dashboards for the optimal, I would say, experience of the user and the right information in context. And if the information is not there, but it has to come from 2 combined platforms, then through microservices or through APIs, you build a new app or a new dashboard. And in this way, you can support your end-to-end information process in your company. This is your ideal environment also to create a digital twin. So where the borders of the platform are, as some companies will say, we are all the platform, others will focus on pieces of the platform. And that's depending, I would say, per vendor. But what does it mean, connected? Well, the first thing is that it's about data and it's about actual information. And that means if you have to change the concept from data owners in the siloed approach, now we talk about accountable persons. If you create data, then you have to think about also who are going to be my consumers of the data and how do I make it available for them. So you're not longer a silo person, you're a person thinking in product streams, in value streams. And I already mentioned, we talk about data. That means we have to find other ways than documents or files, because files is a set of information locked inside this electronic file. And every time when there is a change of a piece of information, you would have to modify the file. That doesn't work, and therefore we want to go more and more to models, to data, and where possible, share parameters along the whole life cycle. And having said that, you could start your system design, your system engineering with SysML diagrams, with UML diagrams. You could have logical models, you could have physical models, even testing or simulating your product before it physically exists. Then you can have a 3D model also for movement analysis, even with already software analysis. But the model can also serve as the source for manufacturing definition at the model-based definition. And at the end, this instance of a model can be used for augmented reality or virtual reality and a digital twin. And the whole idea of a connected enterprise is that there is no duplication of data, but there is connectivity of data. And this, of course, requires a new way of thinking. You have to think about how can those systems operate. So you need to have an enterprise architecture. You need to have data quality, because if there is no data quality, what is the value of an algorithm? And you need master data management and data governance to make sure that the data can communicate with the other platforms. And some of my customers have already started investing in master data management, which is something coming more from the ERP world than from the PLM world. But I think the PLM world should become also experts in master data management. And I was happy to see yesterday B. Brown presentation about their B Connect project. That is an example where you could also see the importance of master data management as part of a connected enterprise. So it doesn't sound easy to go to a connected enterprise. So why would we do such a difficult thing, and why we are not just bringing products to the market as we are used to do, and maybe a little bit better or faster? The caterpillar, the butterfly. I think the biggest difference, and this is well described already in a slide from 2014 from Accenture about digital PLM, a connected platform is real time. It means your data is there, and if you design it well, all people, all participants are informed and have the data that they need in their context. And this type of environment is scalable. You don't have to install a new system if you want to extend with another function. Maybe your platform already has an app, or you build an app in order to extend the functionality of the connected enterprise. And of course, all the data that you store can be analyzed, can be processed, and it will give you insights of what is happening inside your company. But it can also, again, give you new apps that give you warnings or prevented information. And then at the end, and that is the point, rapid, it brings exceptional speed. Imagine you are working in an environment and you see what is happening around you. Then you can become proactive instead of in the old approach where you had to wait for your information and then you could decide, or you have to go back and say, we need a change, much more iterations. Therefore, the speed of a platform is a big business value for everyone going in this direction. And I think companies that are able to implement connected platforms are the ones that are going to outperform companies that work in the traditional mode. So coming back to the slide from Mark Halperin, we see here, if we talk about coordinated and connected, this is really the part of digital transformation in a company. And it looks like an evolutionary path going from left to right. But now let's zoom in. And if we zoom in, we see a big chasm in the middle. And why it's there, why it's not fluent. First of all, because there is different, sorry, there was a pop-up. First of all, there is different data on the left and the right. There are different people involved on the left and the right. And there are different processes implemented on the left and the right. And if we zoom into that, we see that on the left-hand side, you see the traditional PLM system where every information is stored in files and documents and in context. On the right-hand side, you see the connected platforms as an environment. And it's clear that on the left, we are more talking about a system of record. We write down and we store what we have done in context, where on the right-hand side, we have a systems of engagement. We are working in real time and we are creating baselines, connections of data that bring a valid solution for our problem. And the challenging part now is that we are so used to think evolutionary from left to right, but in this case, we will learn that you will need both in your organization. So if you are in a digital transformation for PLM, remember you will need a system of record and you will need systems of engagement. Now, the different people. If you look to the guy on the left, he is maybe a little bit older than me, but from the same age of education, feeling uncomfortable with a computer and even more uncomfortable when you see the word cloud. Because we were brought up with the idea that knowledge is power. As much as you can put in your head, people will come to you because you are the expert. Being the expert is a job guarantee. And it has worked, and it works for many times in siloed organizations because people will come to you. The disadvantage is that working in such a silo, usually you have limited context of what is really happening with the knowledge that you provide to the company. How are your products used in the field? Often people don't know in the R&D. And this generation is ideal for waterfall products. They can focus on a job, they can go deep, and they need managers or other people for governance and decisions of what to do first. And this is completely different than the new digital educated generation. They are not longer trained to store information in their head, because the information is there if you know to find it and to interpret it. And this is a completely different attitude. And you have to start thinking of information in context and judging information and developing new information, but not as deep as the experts. It's much more focusing on the next step, and that's the big difference in solving problems. But the next step is also connected to the outside world, maybe to the customer or other disciplines within your business. And this type of people, of course, are excellent fit for multidisciplinary teams or in startups where you have to be, I would say, multidimensional. Different processes. I already talked about the old PLM, which is very linear, suited for a waterfall method. You think about or you imagine a product, and at the end you push it in 1-2 years to the market, and then you believe that the market hasn't changed on the outside world. And a lot of information that you create on the path are documents. This, in contrary to the modern way of, I would say, in a connected environment, you will start most of the time with a product that is a combination of hardware and software, deliver a minimum viable product, and then based on what you see in the market, how the customers are working with it, you add features, you incremental improve your product. This is much more the outside in, and you need a data-driven approach to be efficient here. And if you can do it in a model-based approach, you can have this continuously DevOps approach for improving your products in the field. Then different processes. We hear already several years about the experience economy, and the experience economy comes with new models. Product as a service, so you don't buy a capital product anymore, you rent it. It's moving from CapEx to OpEx. And you even have performance or outcome as a service as new models. And in the beginning, if your company is just keep on producing products in the same way, there is, I would say, there is waste. Your products will be dumped anyway. And this is exactly what is happening. The experience economy is also, I would say, can benefit a lot from the circular economy. And in the circular economy, because you own the products, you can also design your products for recycling, for reuse, and therefore also, I would say, reducing the amount of landfill and I would say what happens with our planet, because we don't have enough resources for this, I would say, immense growth. And I recommend you all to look at the presentation I saw from Hannes Lindfred yesterday from TECHNIA about the combination sustainable manufacturing and the importance of PLM. I couldn't have explained it better than what Hannes have done. So have a look at it. Then when we talk about different products, it's also one of the reasons why, together with Rich McFall as the lead, we started the PLM Green Alliance. Because we believe we have to bring people together and thinking about sustainable products. We have to reduce our greenhouse gases and emissions. And we need to create forums where people are discussing and helping each other and inspiring each other to go in that direction. And in that aim, we started the PLM Green Alliance. The current crisis with the COVID virus already shows that we are all globally connected, and if we are in a reactive mode and almost sometimes in a panic mode like now, the costs are enormous, the effect on the society is enormous. But we might think that this is just a one-time happening and it will not happen again. Personally, I think looking what is coming to us, we have to be prepared for the future, which is difficult for the human brain, because if we don't see the risk immediately, we will think it will come later. So we have to, I would say, overcome our one side of the brain and become more logical for the future. So We talked about digital transformation, the difference between coordinated and connected. So the question is now, of course, what can I do? How can I move forward? And first of all, if you are moving from, I would say, a coordinated to a connected approach in a digital transformation, don't talk about migration. Migration is not possible, and migration is often also the big elephant in the room if you are involved in PLM discussions. Because as a PLM vendor, we try not to talk too much about migration because it doesn't make the deal look more nice. You want to picture what happens in the future. If you are a company, you also don't want to hear those negative stories, and you trust the vendor or the implementer that they will solve this technical issue because you believe, yes, it's just a matter of some conversion of data and it will work, because that was the fact in the past. And if you are the implementer, you will start burning the money that was invested, and at the end there will be a crisis where all parties agree on the fact that the ultimate migration is not possible. It's something I learned for, I say, many years in the past, and I've seen this kind of situations. The data is just not compatible, you have to remember. However, and this is what you see in situations with modern PLM, an overlay approach is a kind of intermediate stage. In the term of the Dassault technology, the powered by is an overlay approach, which means it connects connected data to the coordinated data, the files. But remember, those files still remain files. They only become valuable if they become also database objects. How to do it in a correct way? When we started in 2015, the discussions about platforms in the PDT conference, I talked about the bimodal approach from Gartner, which was very much an IT approach and not really suitable for PLM. In 2017, McKinsey published this paper. It's called Our Insight Forward, an Integrated Technology Operating Model, explaining how it could be done working in a coordinated and connected approach. And you start on the left in your traditional business environment with your traditional processes, and with small pods, so really small teams, you start to focus on a technology, on a process or something new. And those teams are completely working disconnected. And of course, the left side is much bigger than the right side. But over time, those digital pods will grow much more in digital product teams, and they will become more significant and contribute more and more to the business. Still, they will not work with the conventional environment, although on the conventional environment, you might already start to introduce some concepts of working in an agile mode. And over time, and this also depends on your organization and the size of your organization, you will get this hybrid environment where both streams work. They use the DevOps approach to work together, and at the end you have an holistic enterprise that is working in different streams. This is a concept, I would say, that is working for modern PLM and digital transformation. The same story, a little bit different, is the three-box solution from Vijay. Vijay was one of the architects of the GE digital transformation. And he mentioned that if you want to do a transformation, you still have to manage your present, because your present business is the business that brings the revenue. But you have to drop something of the past in order to be able to invest in the future. In the case of GE, they dropped their GE finance division in order to invest in GE digital. If you look at a famous Dutch company, Philips started as a company producing lights. They sold their light division because they wanted to become a healthcare division, and they are on the way. And what does it mean with coordinated and connected? Well, if you look at the business models, the present is the coordinated approach, and when you invest in the future, make sure it is the connected approach. Now, let's zoom in on the chasm and let's see how we get at the other side. So what is clear is that the coordinated business will slow down. If your company is working in a certain mode and you keep on working in this mode, you will see your business is going down and taken over by other types of business. But it will remain because we need systems of record and we need this type of infrastructure. But meanwhile, you can start working on a connected business model. You can start small and you can start growing. And at the end, if you count the revenues from both, you will see that you closed the chasm and you have a revenue increase to keep the company growing and working correctly. And this is very much, I would say, the way how to change. It looks from the outside like an evolution. It's not a disruption, but the mindset is the duality that you need to think about. So why now? I think the virus, but also all the discussion about climate change, make it more and more important to talk about the purpose. A company needs to have a purpose, and we heard Bernard Cheles talking this morning about harmonizing products, nature, and life. We saw Jonas Gea talk about making product creation sustainable. Sustainability and the purpose of a company becomes more and more important for employees, for investors, and also for consumers that want to buy products from a company that has a positive purpose. And there is last week this article in the middle I recommend you to read also. It's now also shifting from the why to the how if you look about purpose. Because a lot of companies have a purpose in their statement, but how do they implement it? How do they make sure that it's a real statement that is valuable for their company? And the beauty of a company with a purpose that is sustainable, it is the most profitable model for the future. So if we look at the different levels in the organization, we see that now the CEO has become green, but being green doesn't mean that he understands everything. One of the challenges on C-level is that you might be overwhelmed by concepts of digital twin, artificial intelligence. Those VR, AR demos are fantastic. But if the CEO is digital educated, he will understand that there is a need for data continuity. A VR device only works if the data comes from the source and is not recreated again. So they need to understand digital continuity and understand the duality of a digital environment. But that's the technical side. From the C-level, you expect a strong vision. Remember the beginning statement about digital transformation. You need to have strong leadership, and this vision needs to be communicated. In my blog posts, I call it the myth, because a myth is an easy explanation of something that brings together a lot of people in an abstract mode. Make America big again is a myth, but it makes a lot of people enthusiastic, and you can fill in anything for that. Then from the priorities of the C-level, it's also important to allow experimentation. And experimentation means that the blue connected business investments start small. Don't consider them proof of concepts that you throw away. No, use them as new ways of working and allow failing, but also allow, of course, and promote success. So measure and adjust and grow while you learn. This is crucial for what the top of the company needs to push for. And then the challenge is you can have a fantastic vision as on the management level, but then there is the layer of the middle management. And that's the biggest challenge also in this transformation process. Because in traditional companies on the left side, the middle management is there to manage the usage of the resources in the silos, to define priorities on middle management level. Where on the right hand side, you see that people in multidisciplinary teams, they define together what is next, what is their next activity. And of course, they work in the context of a business scope. And what you see is that in the digital transformation, the role of a middle manager, will he become a leader, is crucial for success. And of course, this slide is somehow saying the same. It's on the left, the old organization, and then on the right-hand side, we see the yes, we can do the empowered person. But even if you empower the persons, I would say in the current companies, and which is an HR activity, you will see that they are not as efficient as we want them to be, because empowerment also needs an infrastructure, a PLM infrastructure that empowers them. They need to get the information in context. They need to see the details to make the right decisions. And therefore, the technology platform, the PLM infrastructure, is crucial to empower the people. The old PLM systems often were designed to hide information and only publish that information to others that is asked for. And so a lot of hidden knowledge is inside those old implementations. Then ultimate, you as an employee in a company, what can you do? And there, I think you have to realize that it's very difficult to change depending on how you're educated, how much, where you are in your personal life cycle, because people can change. It takes sometimes months, sometimes years, but you can only change within your capabilities to change. And it's very much depending on how much are you driven by the purpose to change. Am I doing just my job because I like somebody to tell me what to do? Or I want to be proactive, I want to be in a multidisciplinary team. This is an attitude that is hard to change. And it's crucial to understand you as a person have to define where you go. This is your personal responsibility. What is crucial is that organizations, they can still run in two modes. And the concepts I explained between connected and coordinated, they can run in an organization, but it's not inside the people. You cannot have people running in those two organizations at the same time. And it's one or the other. And for that, I recommend also, because we see a generation change, use a coaching model from the experts to coach, I would say, the multidisciplinary teams during a transition. Because now we see a lot of older employees retiring and they come back as consultants because we still need their knowledge. Why not start now, 10 years before they retire, to have them as coaches in this, I would say, fantastic new digital world. So with that, I come to the end of my presentation. I think I would be happy if you remember the words connected and coordinated, what it means, and the fact that connected is an opportunity to create also a sustainable model and a sustainable business model for the future. All in all, especially the future, it's all about experiment and learning. And I think at this moment in the lockdown, we have a time to think. It will be exponential times, but it's crucial. And having said that, I think I will open and look into the questions. Thank you. The good news is so far no open questions. I'll give you a little bit of time to think. If there are no open questions, you can always come to the booth, to the network area. And if you want to contact me for either a PDF of this presentation, so you will have the actual details of the post I was referring to. There is a question coming in, or it's more a remark. Thank you. And be fast if you have a question. Otherwise, it's time for a coffee. Now the comments come in. Okay. So here I have a question from Alan. If system replacements is the only option, what are the alternatives? I think system replacement can be the only option if you stay within in the same mode of implementation. That means if you have a legacy coordinated system, you can still implement it in a legacy mode in a modern technology. It doesn't mean that you have to migrate to data to a connected environment and resolve all your documents. So the hybrid approach can even work within the same PLM platform, as long as you have both concepts of system of record and system of navigation connected. Then I see a question from Andy. You talked about companies needing strong leadership, yet many companies don't have IT people on board, and IT is an afterthought. Often it works today that is good enough for them, and it's only changes have to be made often at the last minute due to update start in a rush. How do we deal with that? A rush often leads to delays and failure. Yeah, I think Andy here exactly this is the point that that you see in many companies. If you are in a smaller or medium enterprise, sometimes there is indeed no IT, and IT is in theory a provider of infrastructure. And in the future, more and more IT should be strategic. However, the discussion also for PLM should be first on what is my vision, what is my idea for the future, what do I want to do in the next 5 years. And a lot of small and medium enterprises, they are much more in a mode like the boiling frog. We are doing our best, we are fixing issues, but we don't have time to look forward. And as long as you don't have time to look forward, you will never solve, I would say, the bigger issues of the future. And it's a pity, and I think it's a discussion I have many times with peers, that connecting to the management and creating the awareness is crucial. But often when we as PLM guys, we talk too much about PLM and not about business. It's a communication translation aspect. Any more questions? I see Sami. In the poll, it said executive support as a problem. What do you think are best messages there? I think if you are at the executive level, it's and again, as same question from Andy, it's about the size of company. Do they have a strategy? And at this executive level, you talk about business goals. And if your C-level is excited about the digital twin, teach them that a digital twin only works if there is a backbone that is efficient and I would say future-proof, therefore data-driven. That it's not just creating a new group of people that are building something good for a demo, but calculate and imagine how many people you need to maintain a digital twin. Then Alan came back on this question. He said the reality is a lock-in in CAD. Everything else is workflow and document management, little else. Yeah, I think, Alan, here we still talk about one of the big challenges that started from the early days of PLM, the fact that the 3D CAD systems, they developed their own ways of managing data. People were not so interested in managing the content of what is in the CAD model, because at the end, we produced the 2D drawings that we sent to the ERP system. The whole concept of a connected enterprise was not visible at that time. And where a lot of customers also in the days when I worked with Smart Team were trying to move to PLM, they were, I would say, blocked by the fact that all the configurations or part of the configurations were in the CAD model, and the CAD is a kind of lock-in. In theory, and that is the concepts that you see coming up now, is that also CAD should be in a database and with as limited as properties inside a file, but much more connected data is the only way to get out. But you don't get out by converting. So you need to have, I would say, yeah, this hybrid strategy where you say, leave my old cat as long as possible in a certain technology. Then I think I see, Jana, how can we calculate the ROI of PLM? I think we cannot, and I wrote about this in my blog, the PLM ROI myth. I think we can have an idea of a business transformation, and the business transformation is much more than just PLM, but it's about where, what type of business do we want to be in the next coming years. And then you will discover that there is a need for a certain infrastructure to inform your people, to communicate, and this is part of the PLM. But then if you say, what is the ROI? I've seen fantastic hockey sticks where the benefits are growing, I would say, out of the graph. But all depends on also people and how they implement the system, and how to, I would say, to change the culture of working. Because as long as you keep on working in the silos, the ROI of PLM is more an efficiency process. It's not a big business benefit. And then it's great to see Lionel again. And yeah, we had a lot of discussions also on that, on the ROI of Lionel, so of PLM. Thanks, Lionel. Then I think Fabrice says, why do you think execs are more comfortable with the ERP side versus PLM? SAP is taking the strategy to the board of direction. Correct, and I think it's a discussion we had many times also in PLM conferences. And the big reason for that is that on C-level, people are not interested in complex technology. They are interested in numbers. And a system like SAP is providing numbers, insights of the company's operation. They cannot provide you perhaps the insights of product innovation, but you can measure your company. Where are your costs? Where are your assets? And at the end, this is most of the time the mindset from the execs. How is our company operating financially? And only, I would say, after long thinking, you discover that you need to have more. I would say the source for your finance is at the end your product innovation process. If you do not innovate and do not create new, I would say, sellable products, also your financial side will dry down. Okay, one more question from Sami. One avenue or step towards connected could be semantic automatic robots that can scan the coordinated site, docs, etc., and create linkages automatically based on text strings, images, etc. Thinking that there is the past with many times crucial install base data. Do you see this happening in companies? I think yes, and in the context of the Dassault portfolio, for example, Excelite is a perfect tool to index and recognize patterns, and there are other systems in the market. The question is always how reliable, how rich is your data from the past that you index. I've also seen examples from customers where their data had no value after indexing. So the marketing message was very promising, but when the reality came, the data was either not there or not available. And then you miss 50% of your data because it doesn't have the right quality to be connected. But yeah, for sure, the concept is interesting to investigate every time at the customer. Any more questions? Then I think we will close the session. It's time for a good coffee. And I hope you enjoy the conference, and meet you either in the chat channel or through email. Thank you very much, everyone.